standing at the border of what we used to know. 5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highways stretch forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen ones. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Our own sky. Our own sky.
Wow. Okay. That was weird. I was like off to the side, and it was very small. Anyway, oddness afoot. It's been a bit of a day, as you can imagine. Anyway, look, let me get started proper. First and foremost, thank you very much. I've got my cup of coffee, and we're going to do this thing. For those of you that are here for the first time, my name is Daniel Miller. I'm president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that evening where in the middle of the week, I take a break from working on Texas independence come fire up this thing, and I answer your questions. I talk about things that are on my mind, but primarily I answer your questions. And I'm looking forward to tonight. Yeah, I've got something I've talked about the last couple of coffee talks. I'm going to talk about tonight. But you guys have got some great questions, and I'm looking forward to getting to them. However, there is room for more. So let me tell you how you submit those questions. First and foremost, if you're watching on YouTube, you can drop them in the chat. While you're there, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share the link with your friends. And drop a comment. All you got to do is just drop your question in the chat. Kara's about 2 walls that direction, and she's watching, and she'll get them in the hopper so I don't miss them. And if you're watching on Facebook, all you got to do is, first off, be sure to like and share this video, but drop your questions in the comments on Facebook. If you're watching on X, just drop them in the chat there. And while you're there, do a thing. What do they call it? It's since they changed the name from Twitter to X, I've still got all the Twitter terminology like drilled into my head. I was going to say, be sure to favorite the tweet, be sure to bookmark it, the video, retweet it. I guess it's repost now. I don't know. Anyway, you can get your questions answered by dropping them in the chat. All right. Tonight, it's going to be a fun one, right? I've got a good bit to talk about. And of course, while we're doing this live stream, in the background lingering is the tick-tock of the clock, because any bill not heard tonight on its second reading on the floor of the Texas House is effectively toast, right? So there's going to be a massive funeral. And of course, we're at that point of the legislative session where everything's run by the calendar and the clock, and that is a function of leadership and their lieutenants. But you're going to see a lot of really great pieces of legislation die because of how they slow walked it, and effectively because those priorities, things that were important to me and to you and many other Texans, were slow walked with all the vacationing that was done on the Texas House side. It gives a lot of power to the Democrats to essentially kill anything. They've got pages and pages and pages of bills that they're not going to be able to reach by midnight. And so you're going to see a massive slaughter. You're going to see a lot of great pieces of legislation, things that, frankly, are important to Texas nationalism, to Texas sovereignty, to Texas independence, to everyday living and working here in Texas. You're going to see those things go down in flames as the Democrats engage in what is known as chubbing. It's a really, really odd term for what they do, but essentially they slow the process down by taking the maximum amount of time to ask bill authors questions, knowing that all they're really doing is slowing down the clock. And so there's about to be a massive die-off here in about a little less than 4 hours. And there's going to be a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth. And you're going to hear a lot of people say, out there on the campaign trail as they're already getting ready to campaign, well, I was for this, but we just ran out of time. So I don't know what's going to go down. I'm looking to see the post-mortem tomorrow as far as what all died. But we did see some pretty interesting things happen this week. Watch the testimony, the bill layout over in the Senate Finance Committee of the transactional gold bill. Got to see that and come to the realization that our elected, it's not even a realization. I think it's just a reinforcement that our electeds are not the best of us. And I'm not saying that on a personal level, because I'm not here to make those sorts of assessments. But I found myself watching that committee hearing and listening to the questioning that was taking place, and just sort of remembering what the questioning was like over in the House committee over the same piece of legislation, and realizing that we've got representatives that don't not only don't understand how money works and how gold works or precious metals work, they don't understand the Constitution, not the Texas one, not the U.S. one. And it's look, guys, this is what you get when you decide to go. If you decide to go inert, or sort of pour in half measures, this is the kind of things that we get. And the average everyday Texan doesn't really know really what's happening, what their electeds, what their representatives are really doing. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I'm being real. We have a lot of work ahead of us. If you saw, look, I would encourage you to go back and watch the committee hearings and listen to some of the questions these guys asked. And then you tell me if you think we've got a lot of work ahead of us, right? It's going to take a lot, but this is what it is, because we are those people that say never surrender, never retreat, right? At least I thought we were. The way that I see some people talking on social media and kind of the hand wringing and all of this other kind of nonsense, that doesn't sound like no surrender, no retreat to me, right? I see some real kind of ride or die folks out there, but I got to tell you, man, there is a degree of negativity, and I think I talked about this last week. There's a degree of negativity out there I just find, frankly, un-Texan. I do. So, all right, let's do this. Let's see if, yeah, guys, get your questions in, right? You want it. You want those questions. All right, so let's go take a look at email. Stand by. Okay, gonna take the first question, and then I've got something I want to talk about, but I want to get a question out of the way really quickly. This one came in via email from Franklin. Franklin says, just giving a heads up that I stopped receiving your email. Lucky for me, I saved it. This goes back. That's not a question, but let me just pause and say this goes back to an issue that I talked about several weeks ago. There was actually a story in Newsweek about this, about the results of our findings. And this is a challenge. I'm still getting from the email that we sent out after all of that became public to say, hey, are you getting this? I'm still getting responses from people who just happen to be randomly digging through their spam folders, finding that email and responding to it. And that was like 2 months ago, right? I mean, that was a ways back. So this communication issue is a big problem. Much like, people say, that they don't get the notifications when we go live on YouTube or things like that. But look, there are so many barriers between us and you and people that have registered support. It is just a roll of the dice on any given day, whether we can communicate something important to you. Like this morning, Nate Smith, Executive Vice President, sent an email out with some of the progress dealing with the legislature. And it was the second time to send it because so many people did not get it the first time. Right. So this is, what Franklin said here. So here we are. Right. And, where we at? Today's May the 15th. And he's saying, I stopped receiving your email. Lucky for me, I saved it. Think about how long ago we talked about that issue. So if you haven't downloaded the TNM app, you need to go do that. I'm not going to flash the thing up on the screen right now. I'm just going to tell you, you gotta go do that. Okay. His question: what plans would Texas have to stem the tide of immigration after TEXIT? Here's the thing, Franklin. Our immigration policy is set by, as it stands with Texas as a state of the union, is set by bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. Sometimes you get good, sometimes you get bad. 99.9% of the time it's bad, okay? The only way that we are ever going to be able to set an immigration policy that makes sense for Texas is to do so as a self-governing independent nation. That's it. That's the only way that it's ever going to happen. So, what plans would Texas have to stem the tide of immigration after Texas? Well, Texas independence is the first step, right? And then how we handle it after that means that we get an opportunity to do something we've not had since joining the Union, which is literally set our own immigration policy. And the question is, what is that going to look like? Well, what would you like for it to look like? Right? What plans do you want? What do Texans want? Well, I can tell you, after talking to Texans for years and years and years, from one end of the state to the other, they want a sane and sensible immigration policy coupled with a strong border. They want an immigration policy that respects the problems in scaling infrastructure to handle population growth. They want an immigration policy that prioritizes those who want to come here for the right reasons and that Texas, frankly, as a whole needs, versus just, oh, come all ye faithful, or completely slapping it off, right? Texans want something that is sane and sensible and makes sense. But they want that coupled with an absolute strong border. They want border protection and border security that is just not at the level that it needs to be. Now, granted, illegal crossings have decreased significantly under this second Trump administration, but you're one election away from seeing that wiped out, or one federal court ruling away from seeing that wiped out, as we have seen time and time again. So, it's just imperative that we not put the cart before the horse. We need to focus on getting Texas independence and then setting our policy. And what Texans want, that's what Texans get. But they only get it when Texas becomes a self-governing independent nation. All right. Let's take a look here. Man, some of you guys got some good questions. Okay. I don't know what this is in reference to. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it. I'm looking, guys. Sorry. Okay, I understand it now. So apparently, John Bolgiano, who was there to testify at the Senate Finance Committee, made a comment in chat with quotes saying that they were going to essentially saying that the ledge is going to claim most conservative session ever. And it's tongue in cheek. And so I have to thank John for this. Lori, thank you for your $10 super chat on YouTube, which, by the way, please do that. We need all the help we can get right now. But she made the super chat in honor of your comment, John Bolgiano. Look, I will tell you that I took care of this, and she will confirm this. I told her yesterday, whatever day it was, maybe it was Monday, we were in the car and I said, this is what I want to do. I said, if Phelan's AI generated bill makes it into law, his what they call his bill to ban memes, I really want a picture of the Texas House of Representatives with a caption that says most conservative session ever, and then the disclaimer at the bottom that this image did not happen in real life. Right, just put Phelan's disclaimer at the bottom because it's true, right? The things they're doing are such a joke. I could go on and on, but I'm not. But I am going to go on and on about Lori and her $10 super chat on YouTube. Thank you so much for that, Lori. And who's going to jump up and get with her? Who's going to match that $10? Right? Who's going to do that? We need all the help we can get. Thank you, Lori. Let's see here. So here's an interesting question. Jerry Don McKenzie says, assuming we do split, would it be our current borders or the borders of the Republic of Texas? Our current borders are the borders of Texas. So there's not a split, right? The new Madrid fault line is not going to rupture. We're not going to suddenly become Australia. What we're going to do is reassert our status as an independent nation. Essentially withdraw our membership from the United States. But that being said, what Texas is, the current map of Texas is so because Texas sold the rest of that territory, that rest of that property to the United States. who then subsequently carved it up. But that part of it, I think it was a few weeks ago, actually talked about this some. But bottom line is that the borders that we have now are the borders that we have, and the rest of that territory was sold, and Texas was paid. So we can't reclaim it as such because we sold it, and that's not how we operate. But who knows? Since those pieces of Texas were sold off and then added into states' polities that were carved out of the map and themselves now have a certain nation state character because they're sovereign states. Who knows what they'll choose to do? Maybe they make the choice that they want to withdraw from the state that they're part of and become a part of the new Republic of Texas. Maybe all of those states will, but we are not talking about forming another union. That's not going to happen. Okay. Anyway, thank you for that question. Okay, and hey, let's do this. Let's another big thank you out there to Lee Jacobson for your $20 super chat. Man, I appreciate that, and I know everyone here at the team does as well. Thank you, Lee. So I tell you what. Let me do this. Let me get to the next question. By the way, again, thank you, Lee. I cannot thank you enough. Holding down the fort out there. You're doing a great job, and we appreciate it. So I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get to one more question. Oh, and I guess now the question is, who's going to match Lee? Lee doubled Lori, so who's going to match Lee? Right? Looking for your support, and super chat there on YouTube's a great way to do it. Okay, let me get this one question. I'm gonna get into something that I think Lee is gonna like. But this is from Frank. Frank says, do you think California will get its vote before us? That is an interesting question. I would hope not, right? But I can't guarantee. So let me do this. For those of you who do not know, let's share that tab. And let's add that to the stage, and let's put me over here where it actually looks like I'm looking off to the side. But this is where it's at. So for those of you who don't know, the TEXIT movement got a petition because they have initiative and referendum like codified there, where they can get a citizen petition together, and it can go into law. And if you go into what the proposition is, right? So there is a petition that they are circulating. They need 546,651 signatures. They collected 210,031, which is an answer to somebody's question from a couple of weeks ago, which is where are they at? And essentially, if they get this, it will put it on the ballot, but not immediately. It's going to be a few years down the road, and they're doing that to buy time, right? I mean, that's what they want to do. Is they want to say, okay, look, if we're going to get this on the ballot, we need to have this vote down the road. And it's not even like a clean break vote. It's the vote to really kind of study to make it happen. So, I'm going to get Marcus on the podcast pretty soon. We'll talk about the petition. I think we actually have a podcast. Can't remember if it was done before or after the petition, but go look on our YouTube channel or go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You'll find it, where I interview Marcus Ruiz Evans from the TEXIT movement, and we talk about their petition. But really, do I think California will get its vote before us? I don't know. It's kind of like the thing with Alberta right now. They are fastballing that direction. A lot of these places, like California or Alberta, have a much different pathway than we do electorally, right? I have to explain this to people outside of Texas. Kind of blows their mind when I tell them, look, we get this done, we have to get it done via legislation, and that happens one of two ways. Number one, in a regular legislative session, right? And that regular legislative session happens for 140 days every other year. That's when it goes down. Or the second way is for the governor to call a special session. Those are your two ways. Don't send me hate mail. Don't at me. I didn't make those rules. Those are the rules that were given. Okay. So that's the way that it happens. And so why do you think we talk about the legislature so much? Why do you think we're harping on the fact that the legislature, the next election is already starting to happen? And if you want a vote on Texas independence, you've got to start paying attention to these sorts of things. Why do you think I say that over and over and over, year after year after year? Look, I'm going to keep saying it until everybody gets it, right? This is where it's important. If you think that the legislature is a roadblock, then you've got to overcome that roadblock, and that's what you got to focus on. And that focus happens not in Austin. Anybody who tells you that the battle is fought in Austin is absolutely deluding themselves, right? They're deluding themselves and probably trying to delude you as well. That battle is fought in your hometown, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, at your church, in your cities and towns and schools. That's where the battle is fought, because that's where the people are that elect those people that go to Austin. The script is practically written before those guys ever get there. I mean, you get some fireworks every now and then, but basically the script is already written, right? Your ability to achieve your legislative goals and see a legislature that respects your priorities, that all takes place back in your neighborhoods, in your cities, and your towns before the first gavel ever falls in Austin. And so, when people want to run to Austin, I mean, I get it, right? We need to be visible there. There is a necessity to be visible when the session's in, but only as a reminder of the message that they should have been sent in the weeks and months and years prior to that legislative session. That's where the battle is. People talk all the time. I go back and I think about I'll tackle that here in a sec. I think about when Joe Strauss was speaker. They always kept trying to come at him as the speaker, right? It was all about the speaker's vote. I can remember when Ken Paxton was in the House and they pushed him as a challenger to Joe Strauss, and then it was Scott Turner, and that list goes on, and that was the challenge. And everybody would get all hot and bothered, and the grassroots would run up there and, oust Strauss and all this stuff. And they never could dislodge him. But you know what dislodged him? Censure resolutions in Bexar County and House District 121. That's what did it. That's ultimately what wound up shoving him out. So, all of this talk about let's run to Austin, let's burn everybody's money and gas and everything else, and let's run to Austin to try to make a show, that those resources are better spent in your neighborhoods, in your city, talking to voters and getting them plugged into the process. Look, I can yap with the best of them, but it's not just about talking just to talk. It's about talking to engage someone, to activate them, and then to plug them into an organized effort to do something about it, right? That's what a lot of people miss. We can talk at somebody all the time. We can get them educated. We can get them hot and bothered. But then if you just walk away and they walk away and they have nothing to do with it, well, all you've done is make somebody frustrated. Okay, great. Now you've got an educated, frustrated person. Why not educate them and inform them and then plug them in to be organized to go do something about it? That's part of the process. Education, information, organization, and action. It's the circle, right? Because part of that action is informing others. And so it becomes a circle, and that's how you build momentum, and that's how you build mass, and that's how you make change. Social and political change, that's how it happens. Anyway, Frank, that didn't have anything to do with California except the first part, which had a lot to do with California, but it gave me an opportunity to say what I need to say. Anyway, so yeah, we deal with something very different here. Will they get their vote before us? I don't know. I'm kind of cool either way. It is not a race. Although I will say that Dr. Naylor in Vermont, before he passed, and I had a bet that whichever one got their referendum first, they were going to be the proud recipient of beer from whichever state that was. And of course, Dr. Naylor passed, so now I don't have him to send Shiner to. So, all right, thanks for the question, Frank. All right, look at this. Here it is, Sam Kemp. Sam Kemp with a super chat for $50. Thank you so much, Sam. This is man, I really do appreciate that, guys. It cannot be overstated how tough it is for every advocacy organization right now. I mean, and it's because the economy, despite the discussion about it getting better, the economy's tough. But the time right now is super critical for us. There are a lot of things we need to be doing right now that we cannot do, frankly, because people are sort of in that short-term mindset. They're thinking about what's next or what just happened instead of what is coming down the road. And we need to be raising like crazy. So, Sam, thank you so much for your $50 contribution. So, I guess the question is going to be, who's next, right? Who's next? So, you had Lori at 10, you had Lee at 20, you got Sam at 50. Who's next? Who's going to be next to match Sam or exceed Sam? But thank you for that, Sam Kemp, a warrior. All three of you guys are just absolute warriors for Texas independence, and we appreciate it. Okay, so let's get down to let me check email real quick, and let's see. Oh yeah, you know what? I totally forgot to tell you guys. You'll see it at the bottom of the screen. You can email your questions to, there it is. Email your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org, right? You can send your questions there as well. If you're just joining us, you can drop them in chat on YouTube. You can pop them into the comments on Facebook, the chat on X. It's all there. Okay. So let me do this. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to share this. It's not a question, it's a comment. It's worth sharing before I get to this massive tome. Look, this is what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And all you old schoolers will remember this. You've seen it before. But Ray says everyone should carry a few TNM business cards in their wallet. Look out for cars with secede bumper stickers. Keep your ears open for people complaining about costs in the checkout line. Now, that's absolutely correct. And it's not just those are good ones. Look, I will tell you, if you are a TEXIT TNM activist, I'm going to tell you some of the places that are where you should be knocking on doors and talking to people, not just secede bumper stickers, right? I mean, that's low hanging fruit, right? But other things, other people, look for people that are flying Texas flags and only Texas flags in front of their house, or flags from the Texas Revolution. Oddly enough, you're going to think I'm nuts. But this came as a tip from Executive Vice President Nate Smith. Kara talked about this, told me about it. They have worked, Daphne's talked about it. Anyone who has worked an extensive number of TNM events has probably noticed the pattern that the people that you think are going to be averse to this message, the people that are decked out head to toe in American flag gear, hat, everything else, are typically the people that are most receptive. And the reason being is a lot of those folks are not just exhibiting blind patriotism, but they understand that the principles that they believe in, that flag stands for or stood for, are being trampled on and violated, and they want to see Texas become an independent nation. So some other things, you're going to think I'm absolutely nuts on this. But there are a lot of new movers to Texas that are coming here specifically because they anticipate that Texas is going to withdraw from the Union. Statistically speaking, there is a large presence among younger Texans that have a higher Texan self-identification than the boomers. Okay, so you got to think along those ways. So there are a lot of different ways that you can sort of slice and dice this to make your outreach more efficient and effective. But the bottom line is that if you don't talk to people, you'll never know. And so sometimes you just got to ask the question. Or like Ray said, look, here, listen for people that are complaining about costs in the checkout line. You got to remember that independence is a solution, right? It's our destiny. It's a solution. It is the end of the road, not just, it's technically it's sort of the starting line, which is where we're trying to get to. And TEXIT is the process. And when you understand that and you begin to talk to people, you begin to realize that the pain points that they are experiencing, that independence is the solution for a lot of that, because the source of a lot of that pain flows right up to Washington, D.C., or in our relationship within the United States, within that federal system. It's one of the reasons that we're all, here, we're all behind ending out-of-state campaign contributions. I mean, it's one of the reasons, because our relationship with that federal system means federal dollars, money from other states, flows into campaign coffers right here in Texas and puts actual Texans at a disadvantage, pro-TEXIT, pro-Texas, pro-independence Texans. It puts us at a disadvantage. And so, you got to think about things that way. Anyway, thanks for that comment, Todd. That's good. And hey, guys, throw in, I know we've got some activists here. Throw it in the comments of the chat. What are you doing? What have you seen is effective in talking to other Texans and getting them plugged into what we're doing here at the TNM? Would love to see it. All right, I'm going to get to the thing that I said Lee Jacobson was going to love. Okay. I love this. All right, here we go. So, as I said, all of you old schoolers are going to, you're going to recognize this book, right? So, over the years, people will find old Texas books and give them to me, right? They find them, they give them to me. I've got a Texas civics textbook from the 1940s. I mean, I've got some really cool old literature. Man, I got to tell you, really interesting to see what the differences are in a civics textbook from the 1940s versus what they teach today. Maybe we'll take a little trip down memory lane on that one. But I think a lot of people know this one. This thing was published. Let's see. This is the Texas Almanac. It was published in 1967, and it contains documents from the years 1857 to 1873. And this was given to me, and I love to go through this, not because I'm trying to recreate the past. That is a big misnomer for people. We're trying to create a future, but it's a future that's rooted here. You got to know where you come from, right? And so when I found this, or when this was given to me, and I was reading through it, because this compendium of the Texas Almanac, it contains all the Texas almanacs from 1857 to 1873. And in 1868, in the Texas Almanac, they published some notes from the various conventions, right? Let me see. Guys, I promise there is a payoff here. But they published some of the documents, in particular this thing, which has really stood out to me for a very long time. It has done, I talk about Travis's letters. You guys probably remember I did a podcast episode about Travis's letters, other letters from the Alamo. I swore up and down I was going to do a podcast episode about this, but we're still working out some technical difficulties, and I think we got it worked out. So we'll be back to recording and pushing those out hopefully pretty soon. I've got like 3 or 4 episodes in the can that just need to be edited, but technical difficulties, we're all huffing fumes over here, right? Anyway, so in this, there was a letter that was published October 30th, 1835, right? So this was a solid 28 days after the Battle of Gonzales, right? The come and take it flag. Old schoolers, bear with me because I know you've heard this before, but this was, it's titled Address of the Committee of Safety of the Municipality of Liberty to their fellow citizens. Okay, and so the General Council, which had essentially been formed, I think the precursor probably to the provisional government. After the Battle of Gonzales, the people in Liberty, right, the municipality of Liberty, formed a committee of safety. And I'm not going to go through the historical importance of committees of safety, but it harkens back to American Revolution, right? So you can go back and you can do some of your own study on that. But essentially what had happened was this letter was sent by the Committee of Safety and Liberty to the General Council, and the council decided that it was so powerful that they had 250 copies printed of it and distributed. Okay, and I would say, as I said during the podcast about Travis's letters, they had a tremendous impact on me, more so than the victory or death letter that everybody knows. There was one in particular that just had a massive impact. And I would say outside of those, sort of in my post TNM, like I'm in TNM now, not my pre TNM days, but post TNM, because that's when I got this. This may have impacted my attitude more than probably anything else sort of post 2005. And what I think it does is it paints a pretty important picture of the attitudes that were going on there at the time. At the time, and and sort of the divide that they had. And I would say, in my opinion, I think it exudes and informs what the proper Texian attitude is toward these issues, this divide between those who want independence and those who feel like they need to stay, that Texas shouldn't leave, or those who understand that there is a fight ahead versus those people who want to curl up in a fetal position and suck their thumbs, right? So this is the reality of it. So I'm just going to read the letter, and I will take breaks during the letter and converse about it a little bit. But this is what it says. It says the Committee of Safety for the Municipality of Liberty, in the exercise of the functions delegated to them, feel it their duty to address their fellow citizens of the municipality on the present interesting posture of our public affairs. I love how they word that, right? I mean, remember, 28 days, not quite, but almost a full month after the Battle of Gonzales, where they sent the Mexicans packing. This is what they say. The committee are sensible that many worthy and patriotic citizens have been opposed on principles which they esteemed sound and correct to a rupture with the authorities of Mexico. The committee knows how to appreciate such opposition and the motives from which it proceeds, but they would earnestly solicit such as still adhere to an opposition which may have been innocent and even praiseworthy in its origin, to reconsider the subject and to inquire whether the present situation of the country does not essentially change the ground on which their opposition was predicated. Okay, so essentially what they're saying is, look, We acknowledge that there are people out there that don't believe that Texas should be independent from Mexico. They don't believe that Texas should, tell Mexico to go pound sand. And even though they've overturned the Constitution, all those things, they sent troops to take the cannon. They acknowledge that the opposition exists. They acknowledge that those people hold that position, hopefully based on principle, right? In those people that hold that position, that opposition, those principles they believe are sound and correct, right? So what they're asking for here is reconsideration, right? It's like, look, we get it. You are nervous. You don't feel like we need to separate from Mexico. We don't need to pursue independence. We understand that it's a deeply held feeling, but we're asking you to reconsider. Okay. And it even says that the opposition was even praiseworthy in its origin. They're complimenting them on taking a principled stand, even though they're opposed to it. So it goes on to say the committee are free to declare that they too were advocates for peace, while peace was practicable on the terms compatible with the welfare, the honor, and the future safety of Texas and of the Constitution, which we have all sworn to support and obey. The hope of such a peace has departed without leaving a single ray of light to guide the most credulous in the indulgence of it. We therefore call upon all such to abandon an opposition which, however commendable in its origin, can now have no application to the circumstances of the country. And then here's a line that really should stick in your mind. It says, right principles never change. But in the application of principle to facts, there are many modifications. Right? So it's like you've got these principles, and if they're the right principles, they never change. But when there are circumstances, examine those principles in the light of your current circumstances, not compromise them, but understand that those principles, you may not be able to, your principles may be at risk given the current circumstances. So here they go to list the grievances, and it says, the federal Constitution, which was the Mexican Constitution at the time, and the Constitution of the states have been violently destroyed, and the actual powers of the government are usurped by the military, who are exercising them with the wanted cruelty and the recklessness of the rights of citizens that has always characterized the dominion of the sword. Of those of our fellow citizens who regard the sanctity of their oaths of allegiance and allege it as a reason for opposing their countrymen now in arms, we would inquire, what is the obligation of that oath? Most clearly, it is to support the federal and state constitutions. But where are those constitutions? They have been rent to atoms, and their scattered fragments are to be traced in lines of blood beneath the tramplings of the usurper's cavalry on the plains of Zacatecas. Essentially, they're saying, look, we get it. Your principle that you're holding out is we took an oath to the federal and the state constitution, right? We took an oath to these things, and we don't want to break that oath. But they're like, wait a minute. If you took an oath to that constitution, where is that constitution when it has been destroyed, right? It takes two to tango when you have a document like a constitution. Right? It's a multi-party document. And when one party has absolutely and utterly destroyed it, then what good is your oath? What good is your oath? That's what they're essentially saying. It says Texas is but pursuing the noble, though unsuccessful example of that high-minded state. She has resolved to sustain a legitimate government or to perish in the attempt, to oppose the tide of military and ecclesiastical usurpation, and to roll it back upon the unholy league. And she looks with confidence for the aid of her adjacent sister states, the other states in Mexico, who have already experienced the bitterness of military misrule. See, a lot of people don't realize Texas, the Texas Revolution happened, but other states in Mexico were in an uprising as well. Once the Constitution of 1824 was usurped and overturned, other states rose up too. We just happen to do it the best, right? Excuse me. We were able to sink the 8-ball. But it says this: for this purpose, the sword is already drawn. Our fellow citizens are in the field. The banner of liberty is unfolded, and the high example of lawful resistance to unlawful usurpation is exhibited in the gleam of their rifles and the thunder of their cannon before the walls of San Antonio. The committee would, therefore, affectionately appeal to such of their fellow citizens as are still holding back from the good work, in the language of the holy prophet, why halt ye between two opinions? And friends, this is where it's important, and I want you to take this to heart for our current times right here. If the Constitution be the object of your allegiance, then rise up like men and support the Constitution. If Santa Anna and his military vassals be the government you desire, then avow yourselves the degraded minions of an unprincipled and infuriated despotism. The contest is for liberty or slavery, for life or death, for the tranquil possession of the country we have redeemed from barbarism, or a forcible ejectment from it. It admits of no neutrals. Those who are not for us are against us. Those who refuse to save the country cannot hope to participate in the benefits of its salvation. Our numbers are few, but they are a band of heroes, and fear not the issue. Union is always important. The concurrence of every citizen is desirable. The few who still maintain their opposition are not dreaded. Their number is small, their influence insignificant. But, quote, Texas expects every man to do his duty, unquote. The door of conciliation is open, and all are invited to enter. They will be received with cordiality, the past forgotten, and the future only will be regarded. The times are critical. The emergency is pressing and calls for promptitude and energy. Texas is at war, and any citizen who shall be found in practice inimical to her high interest will be dealt with according to the utmost rigor of military law. The committee urged these things, not in the spirit of dictation, but friendly admonition, not to alarm, but to convince and to allure every misguided citizen into the path of duty, of interest, and of honor. The aged and the infirm who cannot take the field can contribute of their substance. The young, the robust, and the gallant are exhorted to repair to the camp, to unite with their brethren in arms, and to exhibit themselves the worthy descendants of those heroes. Sorry, guys. There's something on the screen. Well, we'll figure it out. Let me get back to where I was. Sorry. Let me go back. The aged and the infirm who cannot take the field can contribute of their substance. The young, the robust, and the gallant are exhorted to repair to the camp, to unite with their brethren in arms, and to exhibit themselves the worthy descendants of those heroes of 76. Horses, arms, and ammunition are wanted. Steady hands and brave hearts are wanted to repel the storm of desolation that lowers over our beautiful country. Let no man hold back too long. There is danger in delay. There is mischief in disunion. There is safety, happiness, and a speedy peace in a united, prompt, and decisive exertion of our strength. The committee would repeat the motto of the gallant hero of Trafalgar, quote, Texas expects every man to do his duty. So that's the letter. And I will tell you that I've alluded to it. I have alluded to this letter many times over the last few weeks. Old timers will know that I have talked about it a lot in the past once I found it. But to me, I think it helps inform our current situation, right? I think it does. I think it helps to deal with, or at least tell us what the mindset would be for those folks, or what mindset they would have, what mindset we should have. If we want to hold on to that mantle, right, that legacy of independence and the spirit of independence. I've heard more times than I can count from people lately. Texas is not doing what we expected Texans to make Texas do. Right? More times than I can count. This nonsense that's going on in the Texas legislature. I've heard this on and on and on. And I have to say, I agree with some of it. I think some of that criticism is in fact warranted. Texans are not acting like Texas. Texans are not acting like Texans would have acted in these previous days. People like to say, come and take it. They fly the flag. They do the thing, Alamo, and that's all Alamo and Whataburger and HEB and Texas and all this crazy stuff, right? That's all well and good for the Texas identity, but what about the principles and the attitude that made Texas Texas, right? You can have the facade of Texas, right? You can put on the hat, you can put on the boots, you can wear your thing, but if you don't have that sort of attitude, that those principles that made Texas Texas in the first place, then all you're doing is putting on a Halloween costume. Right? You're just cosplaying as a Texan. You're just a LARPer, right? And so, I read this letter and I understand what they talk about. You've got 28 days after the Battle of Gonzales, and you've got people on the fence about, look, should we stay or should we go? And these guys are like, look, we understand that what you're doing is based on principle, but you happen to be the only person that's sticking to the agreement. And so, what option did they give them? They didn't give them degrees of participation and said, well, we would love for you to be a cheerleader. We would love for you to sit on the sidelines. And, if you can't really help out, your thoughts and, good vibes, that's enough to sustain our freedom. No, they were very clear about what needed to happen. The aged and infirm who cannot take the field can contribute of their substance, right? What does that mean? Supplies, resources, money. And there's plenty of examples of people who did just that. Who's like, I can't march with Houston's army. I can't join the Texan army. I am infirm. I'm old, whatever it is. But here, let me help out. But it essentially said the young, the robust, and the gallant are exhorted to repair to the camp. AKA show up, strap up, and get ready to rock, right? You can put your time into this, right? I mean, that's what they're saying. If you're aged and infirm and all those things, give to the cause. But if you're young enough, then put your body in the game, put on the jersey and get on the field and get to work. And ultimately, I think it really boils down to this. And it may be why I get a little salty sometimes when people ring the bell and head down the old Moses Rose Highway. Because what did it say? Texas expects every man to do his duty. And, maybe I have maybe I'm a bit of a hard butt about it, right? When people wash out for whatever reason. But understand that I have internalized this letter so much, I understand. I mean, look, days that I don't feel like it, days when, I got to go put something on my credit card so that the organization can get into the next month or whatever it is. Look, Texas expects every man to do his duty. I will do my duty, because if I don't, then I feel like I'm going to let these people down. The legacy they handed us. And not only do we have them looking from behind to see if we're going to carry on, we got future generations that are going to look back and say, did they do their duty, even if they look back at us at all? So the responsibility, the pressure comes from both sides. And the question becomes for our generation, for us right now, are we going to live up to this legacy in such a way that it can be passed on so that Texas can survive, so that the legacy of what Texas is and who Texans are can persevere, can move forward into the future? That really is the question. So I see some questions. Tell you what, let me throw this one. This is from Lee. By the way, again, thank you for your super chat. I've got it, and I think we will get if we don't already, we will get the text of it published on the Texian Partisan, because it is to me, it is as important as any document from the Republic period. I honestly, I really believe that it's ultimately one of the things that spurred. I mean, you had the Battle of Gonzales, but I think, especially understanding that they distributed 250 copies of it, it is the I guess the literary equivalent of I don't know. I can't think of anything that I could equate it to, because it is ultimately powerful, and it is sort of the literary equivalent of Travis's line in the sand. It's impeccable. Okay, let's get down to it. I ate up a ton of time with that one, and I'm sorry about that, but that was the other part of this, is I get to talk about what's on my mind along with your questions, and apparently you guys were captivated by that, because you have not. Let me take this one last question, okay, right before we wrap up. Texas Confederate says, how would we be able to convert the U.S. dollar to the Texas dollar? Well, our banks recognize the U.S. dollar. It would be an international exchange, right? So if you watched the committee hearings on the transactional gold bill, I mean, you'll understand that Texas is in effect, Czech is in the process of creating its own currency now, right? We've talked about a lot about this. I used to get questioned about currency all the time. Texas is essentially creating its own currency. That's what the transactional gold bill does, and it's pretty doggone interesting. That's a topic for another time, right? Where we can really break that down, because I'm really wanting that to pass, and we need it to, because it's an important step on the road toward independence. It's a key step in the TEXIT process. So very, very important. But that being said, there was some discussion about that during the committee hearing, right? Which is, everybody's transacting in U.S. dollars now, and they create this, and it's essentially a debit card that sits on top of your deposits of precious metal in the Texas Gold Depository and Leander. Again, whole other story, but what does that conversion look like? And it becomes electronically, it becomes a real-time conversion between the fractions of gold and U.S. dollars. And so you think about how do you convert the U.S. dollar to the Texas dollar? Or so if Texas has its own currency, whatever it is, how do you convert that? Well, how do you convert it to a euro or any other, a yen? I mean, any other currency in the world? That's what currency exchanges are for, right? And so the ability to freely convert your currency is one of the benefits of being able to have a currency. People will swap, and they will be Texas currency will be traded on the currency markets. I mean, that's the cool thing about being an independent nation and having your own currency, is all of a sudden now you get to compare your currency and the value of it with currencies of other countries, and it's important for trade. But the second part of your question, will our Texas banks recognize the U.S. dollar? Banks recognize money from all over the world, right? They will hold your money in the denomination of the country that you're in, but they recognize those because those currencies are backed by the full faith and credit of whatever government entity that they deal with. So, yeah, they'll recognize it, but banks here in Texas will likely, we're talking post-independence, will be holding their deposits in whatever the currency of our nation state is. It's the way it works. Anyway, thank you so much for that question. All right, friends, that is going to be a wrap for tonight. We have got, let me just say this before I start throwing this thing down. We have got some big announcements coming down the pike. But I do want to thank our channel members, Ron Raffoon, Melinda Liu, Jasmine N, Lee Jacobson, Larry Belkin, Netgear. Thank you guys so much for doing one of the channel subscriptions on our YouTube channel. It is super helpful, and we really do appreciate it. But we got a lot of announcements getting ready to come down the pike. Legislative session will end June the 2nd. And there's going to be some announcements, some pretty big announcements about the TNM and what we're going to be doing in the future coming out. I do believe, let's see, today's the 15th, probably ahead of that. You're going to see some shuffles. You may have already seen some of those shuffles taking place if you're astute and observant. But there are some big announcements coming, and you're not going to want to miss those. We will probably have a special live stream for those, or maybe we just announce them to members of the TNM only. But one way that you can be sure to be on that list for notifications is to do this thing right here. Head over to tnm.me/vote and pledge your support today. Register your support with the TNM. You get signed up for updates. You get a login to the website. You get, there's all kinds of cool things you can do, right? But what's important about that is it gets you access to TNM Social, which is our primary communication tool, one-to-one between us and you. You go to tnm.me/app. You can download the app, but you do have to be a registered supporter to be able to log into it. But, I can guarantee many of you people across all these various channels probably got the notification to watch this from there. Because these other platforms are notoriously horrible about keeping us from communicating with you. And so the people that have the app, they know what's up, and they knew what was up when it was up. So make sure you get the app downloaded at tnm.me/app. Additionally, if you received Nate's email today, you know that we have to be in fundraising mode because we've got a big job ahead of us. And just like every organization right now, we are just huffing on fumes. I mean, we are sliding by day to day, and we need your help. Head over to donate.tnm.me. Make a donation today. We really could use your assistance. And with that, my friends, that is going to be a wrap. There's so much. I could be here for hours. But look, if you want me to do some more deep dives on some of the foundational stuff, let me hear from you. Drop it in the comments. Let us know wherever you're watching this. Drop it in the comments, the chat, wherever it is, and we'll be more than happy. Look, there's a lot more where that came from. I think it's important that we understand who Texans are if we're going to preserve that heritage, that legacy that's going to really propel us into the future. I think it would really change a lot of the mindset of a lot of people if they understood where we came from and what was given for us to even have this opportunity today to pursue our independence. So, friends, that being said, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I still got coffee in my cup. I think I'm going to just chug this thing down as soon as we turn the camera off. But until we meet again, I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.